does it feel to have lived long enough to see all of your favorite franchises go down in flames?
Feels great.
Oh, darn it, what a mess. Alright, Spark Notes time. The plot is everywhere and somehow nowhere at the same time. Some things are set up but never really paid off, and some things were paid off even though they were never set up.
Here we go, Dad.
A lot of the acting was wooden, a lot of the lines were cringe-inducing, and there was no logic in anyone's actions, including the genius Artemis Fowl, which, while ironic, is also painfully sad. This movie is filled with so much exposition, fancy special effects, and children emoting that I was having a flashback to another movie of its kind. So if you're still wondering if I recommend this movie, no, I don't. Not even to the preteens who haven't read Artemis Fowl yet and who this movie was technically for. This movie is like a fever dream. Nothing makes sense, will leave you mentally and emotionally exhausted, but you won't really remember it in a few weeks' time. 3 out of 10. If that's all you wanted to know, dear listener, then there it is. But if you wanted a more in-depth rant about why this movie sucks more than the mouse sucking on Trump's teeth for that bailout money, then the remaining time is just for you. Get comfy and whatever tasks you're doing right now and get a snack and our water ready. I'm going to eviscerate this film harder than Gordon Ramsay eviscerates bad food. So the first thing I noticed when starting my free trial to watch Artemis Fowl, because I'm not paying money for this, is that it's only an hour and a half long. Now, that's technically not a bad thing, as most other Disney films have similar runtimes, but it is worrying when you remember that this movie is supposed to be an adaptation of not 1, but 2 books. First of all, trying to mush 2...
Hoopla!
What the...
Hoopla! Hoopla!
Oh, right. For those that judge this movie on its own merits camp, I would if I could, but I can't because the movie itself doesn't. What I'm saying is, 1, the movie's obviously based on a hit book series, which it will not shut up about, by the way, and 2, heavily uses scenes and lines from the source material. It's weird because it definitely tries to pull a How to Train Your Dragon in shaking up the narrative and not following the book too closely, but it just couldn't stick that landing. Anyway, what I was saying was that the production of the Artemis Fowl film is horrifying. It was in production hell for almost 20 years, and many scriptwriters and directors came and went. One of them being Harvey Weinstein, apparently? Oh, that must have been awkward. And thanks to the fan backlash and the coronavirus, they edited out a lot of scenes and slapped it on Disney's streaming service. This film cost $125 million to make, but you wouldn't know it half the time. It's also kind of sad when you compare it to its rival Harry Potter, who had the exact same budget when it debuted. Artemis Fowl really needed a good, talented team that could either 1, adapt the book faithfully into a movie, or 2, just come up with a slightly different narrative that still holds the heart and soul and the major scenes of the book. They should have just picked 1, but instead they tried to go for both at once. And that's why this film I'm about to describe to you is so confusing. The movie starts with a nice landscape shot of the Fowl Manor, with text telling us so. It looks fairly calm and empty until we cut to a new shot where news reporters flood the front gate. And I said it there. They're doing a news report about the disappearance of the criminal mastermind Artemis Fowl when something catches their attention off screen. If you're expecting Artemis Fowl II to drive by with Butler, so was I, but instead we see Mulch. I'm not making this up. We see a swarm of reporters running to something off screen. It then cuts to a title card, then we see Mulch Diggums dragged by police to a wagon and detained. Mulch is then taken to some isolated prison out in the ocean where he is interrogated by humans. He, at first, tries denying any wrongdoing, that he was just out for a stroll. This only lasts 3 seconds before he spills the beans. And I mean all the beans. Mulch is now our narrator for most of this film. Hope gravelly voices don't annoy you. We are then finally introduced to our title character, Artemis Fowl, while he's riding his surfboard. And just for clarification, I'm going to be calling Frida Shaw's character Junior, because despite being called Artemis Fowl, Junior acts nothing like his book counterpart. Oh, he tries. He tries so hard, but he still misses the mark. I don't blame Shaw for this either. He is a child after all, and he really does try his hardest, but someone really needed to give this kid better direction. So anyway, we see Junior out surfing real quick before rushing off to school while Mulch is stating how much Junior loves his homeland of Ireland, but hates school. How relatable. Of course, the reason he hates school is because he's so smart, which is shown through Mulch listing off of Junior's accomplishments, such as cloning a goat at age 10, winning the architectural competition to design the Dublin Opera House at age 9, and beating EU chess champion Evan Khashoggi in 5 moves at age 7. Again, we are told this, not shown it. Nice storytelling there. We then see Junior in therapy talking to Dr. Poe. This scene takes place in the second book, but I actually don't mind it being placed here, as having Junior have a discussion about his mental health, all while trying to outwit and unnerve Dr. Poe would prove to the audience that Junior is a genius and quite prideful. They go through their lines almost word for word until Poe says this.
Well, firstly, there's your dear mother, of course, who was a wonderful woman, in my opinion, and taken from us far too soon.
Wait, what? What? Angeline Fowl is dead? Why? How? Disney really isn't helping disprove the theory that they have a hard-on for dead mothers. Junior doesn't even try to counter it with a "she's still alive, just missing" bit, as Artemis did about his father in the book. So I guess she's actually dead? No fake out here, folks. So now the entire subtext of the scene has shifted. In the book, Artemis always held the high ground, even in simple one-on-one discussion scenes such as these, especially with adults, as Artemis refused to be talked down to. When Artemis talked to Dr. Poe, he was condescending, messing with him, and left not in a huff, but because he received an important call about his missing father in the book. Junior, however, never acts condescending. Not really. He goes from bored to irritated to frustrated and leaves disgruntled. Junior never gets the high ground. He acts more like a bratty teenager with mommy issues than a prideful egotist. Whatever, let's move along. We see Junior ride around on this thing, returning home to meet his father, who I'll call Senior for simplicity's sake. We learn that Senior is the one who knows about the fairy world and has been telling Junior all of the folklore about them, though Junior just thinks they're fairy tales. Again, we are told this by Mulch, and not by listening in on their conversations. It's an interesting change from the book, but considering how the leprechaun operates in this film, I'm kinda not surprised. Okay, but seriously, how does Senior know anything about the lep? How does he know anything about fairies?
Well, it doesn't have to... That's a good question. I don't know.
The next morning, or at least I think it's the next morning, Junior meets with Senior, who tells him he's leaving for one last trip. Junior gets all pouty, saying he's not a child and wants to go with him.
All I really want is to believe in you.
Cringe. You're beginning to see why I call him Junior, right? The two hug before parting ways, and Senior shares an Irish poem with Junior. The next morning, Junior, with a generic Irish book in his bed, wakes up to Butler talking urgently on the phone downstairs. Mulch then explains to us who Butler is, all his accomplishments, and that he prefers to be called Dom or Domovoy. Why is Butler called Domovoy? In the book, the reveal of his first name was important. Butler would never reveal his first name to his employers, such as Junior or Senior, because doing so would, 1, compromise his job, being too emotionally attached to his charge, and 2, he would only ever tell them if he was about to die. So yeah, whatever, it doesn't matter. I guess this Dom is just more friendly? Alright. We then cut to Junior going to the kitchen for milk. The TV is on and it begins talking about Senior seeing that he has disappeared and that the man is actually a thief and a criminal.
He is also suspected to have been behind some of the biggest robberies of the past 10 years. Investigations are on.
Again, more cringe. Junior is dragged out of the room by Dom, and Junior shouts a line that actually sounds something like Artemis would say. Then we get Junior running to the phone, yelling, "Dad." You know, a smart person would try to trace that call. We then get another landscape shot that, in the context of the movie, doesn't even matter. All you need to know is that this is where Opal is holding Senior hostage. Opal tells Junior this, and Junior demands proof. Senior then yells at Junior not to get involved and that everything he said is all true. Opal demands that she will release Senior if she gets the Aculos that Senior has stolen and hidden, and that Junior has 3 days or she'll kill his father. So we have two major differences here. One is that Opal kidnaps Fowl Senior, not the Russian mob, and two, instead of money, Opal wants a strange artifact called the Aculos, which means acorn in Greek. But that doesn't matter, because I'm calling it the McMuffin. Again, Opal was a character that didn't get introduced until the second book, though she does become the series' prominent villain all the way to the 8th and last book. So Opal is important, and I can see why they would want to add her in, but other than causing the inciting incident, she doesn't do anything. She's just a shadowy figure in the background, talking like she's been smoking 10 packs a day. Yes, voice changer, whatever. Even her motivation is ham-fisted in, and doesn't match her book counterpart at all. Book Opal is a super intelligent, egomaniacal, very rich entrepreneur, Pixie, who tries to take over the surface multiple times because she feels that she's entitled to be queen of everything. Movie Opal seems more like a misguided avenger, which is fine. It's fine. Whatever. She's still a villain, so it's all good. I'd nickname her Nopal, but there's already a Nopal in the book series, so Mopal it is. Second change is the new MacGuffin called the Aculos. I don't know what this is, or what it does, or how important it is or will be to the movie or future movies. Future movies. If I had to guess, it would probably have been used to open the Berserker Gate in the final book, The Last Guardian. It makes sense since the book's way was convoluted, though I think watching Opal getting Doc Manhattan would have looked pretty cool. Anyway, the point is that the Aculos is an important McMuffin and everybody wants it. Dom comes running down the stairs. Wait, why is he running down the stairs when he was in the kitchen? Dom comes running down the stairs asking what happened. Junior explains, and thus Dom shows Junior his father's secret lab, full of fairy artifacts and jarred water. How hard is it to just put dye and glitter and fake specimens in water? Come on, guys. Dom explains that while he knew of Senior's collection, he doesn't know anything about the Aculos, though there might be clues in Senior's journal, which he's hidden. Junior recalls that poem that his father apparently always tells him, and uses it to find the journal. Not the best show of his super intelligence, but hey, he can at least solve puzzles. Junior learns that his father was given the Aculos to hide and safeguard, so Junior knows he has it and not the fairies. Putting a pin in that. We then have Mulch narrating again about where the fairies live to humans. So Mulch is a traitor now, right? Like, there's no way he's not getting jail time for this. He's spilling this huge secret that could get everyone in Haven discovered and probably killed, or at least start a war over. Doesn't even matter if they're mind-wiped, he's screwed. You don't just spill secrets. In fact, in the book, and I'm not just talking about the book, I'm talking the Book of the People. There's literally rules in Haven where if you rat out somebody else, you're immediately disowned. But I guess they just didn't want to include that, because it would ruin the movie? Whatever. Alright, some good news. I actually like this shot of Haven. It's really gorgeous. I kinda just wish they had something on screen to use as a measurement. And I mean something recognizable. The flying buses don't count. It's actually kind of hard to discern how big things are. Also, more good news. We finally get a character introduced without narration. Hooray! We see Holly Short walk off a ship and walk to the LEP offices, passing by a news broadcast running a story on the stolen Aculos, stolen by Beechwood Short, Holly's father. Interesting plot point, but they don't really do anything with it. It's just there to explain how Artemis Sr. got the Aculos in the first place. We then walk by a bunch of people wearing leftover costumes from Star Wars, including prisoners. More narration time. We get introduced to Mulch, who is a giant dwarf and a thief. He's been apprehended and is being taken to jail. Whoa, deja vu. We also see him being threatened by goblins who are dressed in the Hood starter pack. Mulch sees Holly and they begin to talk, and I'll be honest, I like this interaction. There's actual chemistry here. In fact, I feel like I can say that with almost all of the fairies. Mainly Mulch, Holly, Folly, and even Judy at times. Anyway, the two have a bit of a chat, and Holly leaves to go off to work, not realizing that Mulch nabbed her iPod. Suddenly, we are taken somewhere, and for a second, I thought we popped back to Artemis' senior in his cell. Then Mopel shows up and says...
Briar Catchin.
Wait, what? Why is Briar in a cell? Well, he hasn't done anything in the plot yet. Not only are fans confused, but newcomers are confused too. Who is this person and why is he in prison? Does he know Mopel? Or is he just loyal to her now? Why? What beef does he have with Judy? And where the hell is the council? And why are they okay with him walking around? None of this makes any sense. We then pop right back to the Leprechaun headquarters, where we see Judi Dench as Julius Root, giving a speech to her police officers. So yeah, in an attempt to promote girl power, they undercut Holly's story arc of being the first female Leprechaun officer, and her trying to match pace with the boys. So we basically got the knockoff cast from NCIS Los Angeles. Cool. Anyway, Holly tries to convince Root to let her search for her father, and she is immediately denied. You know what else should have been denied? This terrible lip sync.
Commander, I have a new lead on my father. He was at the Hill of Tara.
You're not going.
But, Commander...
That's an order, not a request.
Yes, Commander. He was at the Hill of Tara. He was at the Hill of Tara. He was at the Hill of Tara.
There are so many 80-yard lines in this movie that it feels like I'm watching a cheap anime. Half of their dialogue is just spoken off-screen or with their backs facing the camera. It's terrible. Meanwhile, we see Butler in some ruins for no apparent reason while Mulch gives more exposition. We are then met with the infamous clip in the trailer of two people doing kendo, and surprise, surprise, it wasn't Junior, but Juliet. And for those patting yourself on the back saying you weren't fooled by this trailer not once, and laughed at people who got mad at the obvious lie, that's not the point. The point is that Disney purposely lied to their audience in order to get more asses in the seats by making their main character look like an action hero. Also, Junior, while not a skilled fighter, still does physical activities, unlike Artemis, who despises any form of physical exertion. Anyway, Juliet's here, and while she is a capable fighter, her only contribution to this film is to bring people food. Kinda like her book counterpart. Junior tells Juliet his plan. Basically, Artemis can't find where the Aculos is, though he is sure it's inside the house somewhere. Junior states that the reason he can't find it is because he's not meant to find it. A dwarf is. Okay. But in order to find a dwarf, he has to get a fairy to help him. Okay. Junior goes on to say that his father meets up with a fairy at the Hill of Tara periodically, and that she, how does he know it's a she, might help him with a bit of persuasion. And now, dear listeners, I want to play a little game. I want you to predict what boy genius Artemis Jr. will do in order to get a fairy, to get a dwarf, to find the Aculos in order to save his father in 2 days' time. You got 15 seconds. Alright, let's see if you were correct. If you answer that Junior would snipe a fairy with a tranq dart, kidnapping her so that he could make an army of fairies surround his house and intimidate them so much that they'd send in a dwarf who, instead of fighting and freeing Harley like he was told, instead finds and cracks a safe that just so happens to hold the Aculos, then I'm sorry to say that you lost 1.5 hours to this horrible film, just like I did. Hugs? Hugs. This plan is god-awful. Forget an actual genius coming up with a better plan. A person with a mental handicap can come up with a better plan. Why the hell would you want to antagonize the group of people you need help from, the same group who you share a similar goal with? Both groups want to keep the Aculos safe and capture the actual bad guy, which is Mopel. You don't need an army for that. just a covert group to find the Aculos, use it to teleport to the prison, rescue Senior, and capture Mopal, and then teleport to Haven. This is probably where the second book would come to play, as that's kind of what they did in the last half of the Arctic incident. It would explain why Mopal was in a snowy area, even if that's not where her industries was supposed to be. God, this movie is like one of those pictures. The longer you look at it, the more mistakes you see. So we pop back to Haven where Folly is being introduced, not wearing his tinfoil hat, but that's just a nitpick at this point. Also, Folly did not create nor code the Nomus language. It's just an ancient hieroglyphic language where instead of reading left to right, top to bottom, you read it in a spiral. Artemis ended up decoding the entire book of the people in 2 days, no sleep, and lots of trials and errors. Anyway, Folly picks up something on his monitor, stating a Fae is out on the surface with no shield on so they are visible to humans, which is a big no-no. Since the other Lep are busy, Holly is the only one to go up and capture the Fae. She rides a pod to the surface, which is less than conspicuous when she pops up from the vent. Again, Haven and the Fae are supposed to be kept secret, right? We don't even see her activate her invisible shield, so it looked like she's in plain view, and when she talks she's practically shouting. Anyway, she realizes she's following a troll, a very large and very dangerous creature that can gobble at fairies and humans alike. Holly tries to save the humans by distracting the troll, but does little good. Root then orders Folly to initiate a time stop to keep everyone from dying, which in context of the book doesn't make much sense. In the book, a time stop is when time inside a shielded area would, well, stop. Anything outside of it will be unaffected, while inside time will stand still. But just time. People and fairies can still move around. And if someone outside tried to look in, they wouldn't see anyone, human or fae. It's weird nonsense that definitely breaks obvious rules of space-time, but whatever, it's magic, and as long as it's following its old rules, I was fine with it. In the movie, however, this doesn't happen. There's one time stop where everyone, excluding the Lep, are frozen. Okay, fine, whatever. The Lep are probably protected by something in their suits that keeps them from being affected. That's cool, except now Junior is screwed when they do it at Fowl Manor. They'll initiate a time stop, they'll have Mulch break in, rescue Holly, collect the Oculus, and leave. Junior just lost everything, right?
Nope.
The time stop they place on Fowl Manor freezes everything outside of the field, while time inside moves normally. That's a lot of nonsense. Anyway, after capturing the troll, Holly flies off to the Hill of Tara, where her father was last seen. Junior and Dom are waiting for her and, using a trank, shoot her down and capture her. How the hell did they build that cage so fast? We have a scene where Root panics when she hears where Holly has disappeared, recognizing that Fowl Manor is near. I'm drawing attention to this because during the negotiation scene, she kind of forgets who she's talking to. You know, a good way of getting rid of inconsistencies in your stories is just proofread the script. We then have a scene where Artemis Sr. is telling Junior about certain Fae's magical abilities and how to counter them. Thanks, without this dialogue, the audience would be even more confused about what's happening when Holly tries to memorize Juliet.
Yeah, whatever.
I bet you have beautiful eyes. I wish I could see them.
We then get one of the most irksome scenes in this movie.
Who are you? What do you want from me?
You're part of the plan.
Who's in charge here?
I am.
You're just a child.
Welcome to Fowl Manor, Officer Short.
So far, Junior has acted like your stereotypical child, who is still grieving the death of his mother and now only has 1 day left to rescue his father. You'd think he'd try to act gracious and persuade Holly to help him, but instead he acts like a dick.
You'll never get away with this. My people will come for me.
That's what I hoped you'd say.
It doesn't make any sense plot-wise or character-wise. Yes, Artemis was a conniving, condescending, disdainful teen who coveted gold and money almost over everything else. The fact that he's a millionaire and a genius also doesn't help his swollen head or ego. He was on top of the food chain and knew it and used it to his advantage to get even more rich and crushed anyone who dared get in his way. Readers are able to buy this because Artemis continues to act cold and calculating throughout the entire book. Even when he's excited, he maintains his stony expression. Junior's personality flip-flops. So far, the movie has told us he's smart and athletic and loves his father and knows Irish folklore, but so what? We've seen him angry, frustrated, happy, and scared. Junior's diction sounds like any common teenager's, and finding his dad's journal wasn't the best show of his intellect. Junior states that he can read Gnomish now, but we never got to see him crack the code or translate it like we do in the book. He just gets it now. In fact, now that I'm addressing it, what does Junior want out of life? Artemis wanted to restore his family fortune and criminal status because being anything but number one hurt his frickin' pride. But Junior? I guess he wants to see his dad more often? Whatever, Junior acts like a dick because he saw it in a movie once. All he does is time stop and an army of leprechauns storm the manor. Kind of useless when the movie lazily tells us later that fairies can't enter human homes without permission. At least I think it does. Kinda? The movie never really explains this, but everyone is acting like they know this rule. Anyway, in the book, they only had 2 platoons of Flep go in, a small group, which Butler easily took down to the element of surprise and being a one-man army. Speaking of fighting, Junior and Dong come out of the house wearing sunglasses and wielding Holly's weapon. Upon seeing this, Root orders her men to attack, and despite there being hundreds of them, they can't beat the bodyguard or child, nor can they stop them from damaging the time stop device. The shield will fall in 30 minutes. Alright, 2 things. 1. The fight here is absolutely garbage. The slow-mo, fast-mo adds no real tension, the fight choreography sucks, and the camera composition is weird, and the CGI takes a serious dip in quality. 2. This fight was completely unnecessary. In the book, Artemis had Butler and only Butler go out and fight the 6 leprechauns to intimidate them. Artemis wanted the Lep to take him as a serious threat so that they would enact a time stop on the Fowl Manor. Once this happened, he'd negotiate, get his gold, release Holly, have a nice glass of wine, and wait for all of this to blow over. So yeah, Artemis's plan absolutely required the time stop, while Junior's didn't. Junior just wanted a fairy and a dwarf. Time stop, not necessary. Fighting the Lep, not necessary. Acting like a dick to Commander Root and asking for the Aculos, not necessary. And when you realize that half of this film was leading to this standoff, it begins to sink in that this film was entirely unnecessary. And ain't that a sin? A film being unnecessary is as bad as a film being boring, in my book. Anyway, we pop back to Mopo spewing about how she wants to kill all humans and take over the world. Whatever. We then pop back to Fowl Manor with Junior demanding the Aculos and that no fairy is allowed in his house so long as he lives.
And in case you're thinking of storming the house, no fairies are allowed to enter it while I'm alive.
As you say, while you're alive.
Nice try to pander to the fans, but you're too little too late. It also doesn't make any sense for the audience watching and technically screws over Junior's plan. The problem is that in the book, fairies is used as a general term for every magical creature, from leprechauns to sprites to trolls to dwarves. This means that Junior technically just banned dwarves from entering his home. You know, the creature that he needs to find the Aculos? Also, the "I'm alive" statement was a ploy for Artemis to get the fairies to biobomb his house while in the time stop. He wanted them to do this because, 1, he knew how to survive the biobomb and get out of the time stop, and 2, doing so would allow him to live and keep the 1 ton of gold he got in exchange for Holly. In the movie, there's no reason for Junior to say that except to allow a troll to be let loose inside his house for the action scene. Why the hell is Junior asking for the Aculos? You have the Lep commander and her army at your doorstep, and you don't think it's a good idea to convince her to rescue your father in exchange for Holly and the Aculos? And if Junior didn't want the threat of a fairy army coming and taking every fairy artifact back and erasing their minds, then why did you kidnap a fairy? A fairy that he was under the assumption that would be his ally anyway.
In my father's journal, he wrote of a fairy who would periodically visit the oak tree on the hill of Tara. She's our best option.
This is what I meant when I said they wanted to have their cake and eat it too. Disney wanted a safe, generic, hero answers the call to adventure film that would bring in newcomers unfamiliar with the book series, but also wanted to be faithful to the book by keeping the siege of Fowl Manor in. But that doesn't work. These 2 plots aren't playing nice together. They can't, because they're 2 very different stories. 2 different stories that, despite Disney knowing better, fuse them together to make a pitiable mess of a movie. Anyway, Junior says no fairies can enter, trying to force him into bringing in a dwarf instead. It's a good thing the movie doesn't realize the Lep aren't made up of fairies or leprechauns, but elves and sprites. We hop back to Junior talking to Holly, then we have this weird scene.
You're enjoying all this. You think it's a game.
Game? My father was kidnapped.
My father is dead.
Can I trust you?
You'll have to. You have no choice.
How did he die?
It was on the Hill of Tara. He was ambushed by one of our kind. Because he'd stolen something called the Aculos.
I've read in my father's journals about the Aculos. About a fairy who swore to protect it. A fairy named Beechwood.
Beechwood Short was my father.
Save Martha!
Wow, you have daddy issues? I have daddy issues too. That means I can trust you, right? I'm gonna take off my glasses now. Shut up and give me the McMuffin. Okay. Bye. Seriously, what is this? What even is this? How do you unintentionally rip off the Martha scene and somehow do it worse? At least Batman realized that Superman has a mother and thus humanizing him and decides to work with him. But when Junior realizes that Holly Short is the daughter of the elf that helped his father, he still just leaves her in the cage. Really? God. So Commander Root demands that Mulch help him, and in return he gets 74 years off his sentence. Again, the chemistry between them is good and believable. I like seeing actual characters in my movies. We also finally get to see what Eoin Colfer's dwarves look like when they're tunneling, and oh my god!
It's feeding time.
You know what? That was never not going to look terrifying, or weird, or silly, or gross. This was always going to be a thing. I'm just happy they did it all. Yeah, I'm happy that they did this. They stuck to their guns and did the best with what they got. I'm not even mad. I'm actually kind of proud. Way to go. So Mulch tunnels into the house and, despite being ordered to rescue Holly, decides to break open a safe. Why? Oh, right, because of that one scene. So, as Mulch is about to give Junior what he wants, Junior immediately goes to Holly and begs for her help? What do you mean you need Holly's help? You're about to receive the Aculos to save your father. You don't even know you can't use the McMuffin yet, so why are you asking for her help? What the hell is she supposed to do, and why would she help you anyway? You kidnapped her. Does Junior actually have split personality disorder? Holly, instead of mesmerizing Junior, simply punches him in the face and then agrees to help him.
Fair enough.
No, it's not, you liar. So Mulch finally opens the safe and he, Junior, and Holly lay eyes on the Aculos. Holly doesn't even know how Junior has it, as last it was seen her father had it. In fact, you'd think she'd accuse Junior and his father of being the ones to kill her father. But nope, no more drama. We don't have time for that. They're friends now through their shared love of dads. Yay. So we finally have our ragtag group. Junior, Dom, Holly, and Mulch are finally working together. And just in time, because here comes the troll. And would you look at that? A scene from the book that actually works in the movie. Seriously, if Cudgeon can kill Junior and Co. and transport the Aculos to Mopal, then the bad guys win. Funny how Junior's plan seems to benefit Briar than it does Junior. Anyway, Briar tells the other Lep to make a shield that stops the use of magic.
Oh no!
Then the troll is released into the manor.
Oh no! Oh no!
Holly, now magicless, can't do much, and is now stuck in a chandelier. Okay. Troll chases Mulch, Dom, and Junior around, causing chaos all around the house, and... Oh, hey, look! It's Juliet! I forgot she was in the movie. No, I'm serious, I legit forgot she was here. Junior jumps on the chandelier to free Holly, which gives the troll the bright idea to jump on too. Holly is freed, Junior falls, and the troll almost falls right on him, but Dom pushes Junior out of the way, causing him to be crushed instead. The troll is knocked out, but poor Dom is dying.
Dom avoid. Dom?
If you're an Artemis fan like me, you don't care, because you know Butler doesn't die. And if you're not a fan, then you don't care because you barely got to know this cardboard character and it's a Disney movie. You're too afraid to make the main character a villain. You really think they're going to kill someone in the main cast off. So yeah, Dom is dead for 3 seconds before Holly's magic is returned to her and she heals him.
You're back!
The time field is disintegrating and it's time for every Fae to get the hell out of Dodge.
Mulch, the Aculos. Do you still have it?
Yeah, sure. Right there.
Good. I have a plan.
No, you don't, you freaking liar. How the humans or the men aren't affected by the time stop exploding is beyond me. I don't really care either. Mulch digs underground and gets away, and Holly hides out in a cave below the rocks, I think. Once the time stop ends, Holly comes back to help Junior. Holly asks,
Are we friends? Artemis Fowl?
And Junior answers,
Forever friends.
Holly then uses the Mighty McMuffin to teleport Artemis Sr. back home, leaving Mopal with nothing. Senior embraces Junior and thanks Holly, who teleports back to Haven with the Aculos. Junior then calls Mopal and rubs his victory in her face, finishing with this line.
Just who do you think you are?
I'm Artemis Fowl. And I'm a criminal mastermind.
No, you are not, you big fat fucking liar, and you know it. Whatever. All's well that ends well. Even though Mopal is still out there, Briar isn't fired, and oh, that's right. Mulch is still spilling the freaking beans about the people. Did you forget? I almost did. Whatever. It's obvious that Junior and Cole will come and rescue him, and Holly will mind wipe them. Right? Well, they do rescue Mulch, but there's no mind wipe.
We must recover the Aculos and protect our anonymity. For the peace to remain, so must our secret existence. Preserve that at all costs.
For some reason, both Mulch and Junior think that telling the police, or whatever organization this is, about the fairy people and the Fowl's involvement would make them scared enough to not pursue them. What the hell were the writers thinking? What the hell were they smoking? What the fuck did I watch? I haven't been this let down since Shyamalan's Last Airbender, or hell, even Netflix's Death Note. Even when I don't compare it to the book, this movie is awful. Every character besides Mulch, Judy, and maybe Holly acts so wooden and awkward, including poor Frida Shaw. This was his big debut into the world of acting, and it's tied to this. I really hope he gets into something better. The same goes for Judi Dench. First Cats, now this? Poor gal can't catch a break. Laura McDonnell and Josh Gad were alright, and poor Tamara Smart and Nonzo Anozie? I suck at names. Characters were really wrecked by the editing. They barely even got to do anything. Speaking of editing, they left a lot on the cutting room floor, one of them being Angeline Fowl herself. Seriously, Miranda Rison is still shown to be in this movie on IMDb. Also, Mopal is played by 3 people. I can't tell if that was just bad scheduling or if they had to take that many reshoots. Well, if Disney released this in the hopes that no one would know how bad it would be, well, can you believe they're planning on making this into a TV show? Can you believe they're planning on making a Percy Jackson TV show? Haven't these 2 IPs suffered enough? Now, I'm not saying there weren't people who'd like it. If you're one of those, that's cool. Good for you. I'm glad you can like something that I couldn't. I just hope you understand why I didn't like this. As a movie, it's an incoherent, jumbled up mess that's glued together by ADR lines and special effects. As an adaptation, it's soulless. As in, Disney ripped the heart right out of the book and tried to sell its corpse thinking it would get more buyers. Artemis Fowl isn't just a boy going on grand adventures with fairies to save the world. It's about a boy who believed his role was forever to be a villain, only to realize what he needed to be was a hero. It was about watching this young teen grow from a spoiled brat who coveted gold in his family's honor, to a young man who used his money, intellect, and status to help others. He doesn't do a full 180, he still acts pretty snide, but he was leagues better than when he started. Artemis doesn't have the best redemption arc. Hell, it's not even the best book series I've read. but it was still pretty good and fun to read. It had great schemes, great characters, small hijinks and comedy, and some genuinely heartbreaking scenes. The world of Artemis Fowl was something that I could easily get myself into, to the point where I couldn't wait to read the next installment in the series, and when it did end, it felt like an end of a journey. Everything just tied up nicely enough, I guess. Seriously though, I definitely recommend reading the book if you're okay with the weird humor and the environmentalism being shoved down your throat. Honestly, it's not that bad. Seriously, the book is so good, go read it. And I think that's it. I covered just about everything I wanted to talk about and felt like needed addressing. So why do I feel like I'm missing something? Well, I can't remember, so it must not be important. Thank you for listening to my awfully long rambling, and I hope you were able to finish that task you were doing. Good day, and good night.